So last Wednesday night, my friend Cody, the one I talked about earlier, invited me over. Okay, let's restart this evening. So it was quiet. I was like, I'm not doing anything tonight. So I went and took my shower, got ready for bed. I was going to make some dinner and then curl up and watch a movie probably. So then Cody chatted me and invited me over, and he said he'd make dinner for me and watch a movie. So I was like, okay, dinner I don't have to make, and a movie, and I get to hang out with Cody, ballin'. So I was like, okay, I'll be there in like 30 minutes. So I, fixed my hair kind of, put it up in a ponytail, and I grabbed my bag, ran out the door. So I was at his house, and we ate awesome pasta. It was so delicious. And then we watched one of my favorite German movies. And so then we sat around and talked. So it was like 1 o'clock. And I was like, well, I should probably go because he had school the next morning. And the metro stopped running. And so I was like, well, I don't want to miss my metro. So I walked to the metro, and what did I do? I missed my metro. So I walked back to Cody's apartment with my head hung low, and I was like, Cody, can you call me a taxi? So he called me a taxi, and I got all the way back to my apartment, and I walked up the stairs, and I'm looking for my keys, and guess what's not there? My keys. So I practically dumped my bag out in the middle of the floor looking for my keys. And so, of course, my apartment came with a spare set, but what did Mom and I do? We said, oh, we'll just toss it in the drawer inside my apartment. So when I actually needed them, guess where they were? Inside my apartment. No help at all. So I couldn't find my keys. And so I was like, okay, Lauren, think. You got to find a solution. What are you going to do? You can't just sit here. So I called my landlord, but he wasn't answering. And then I was looking through my purse, and I found an iPod that Kelsey had given me, like an MP3 player, that Kelsey had given me like 2 years ago. So I was like, alright, pretend you're MacGyver. What are you going to do? So there's like a metal clamp on the back of the MP3 player, so it's like, I bent it up, and I was like, okay, pick the lock with this. So I started to pick the lock. Guess what broke off? The metal clip. No help. So now I've got this jagged piece of metal on the back of my MP3 player that cuts me every time I go to listen to my music. But that's a totally different point. So then I tried body slamming my door, which did not work either because it bolts into the ground basically. And then I just gave up. I didn't know what to do. I used a credit card to try to slide the door open. Obviously that didn't work because of the ground bolt. So I just leaned against my door and decided to give up. I had no idea what to do, who to call. I didn't have any money on my cell phone, of course, because I have pay-as-you-go here. So I only charge if I think I'm going to need it. So I used the rest of my money calling my landlord, who never answered me. And so I had on, like, a short jacket, like, down to my hips. But, it was thick, but it was short. And I had a little purse and some jeans. So I just laid down in front of my door, and I laid my coat over me I was in like a fetal position. But after about 5 minutes, I realized we don't have central heating in my apartment. So I got really cold. So I started shaking, and I can't sleep when I'm shaking. I don't think anybody can. So I just sat, and I waited, and I waited, and I waited. And I knew the metros opened up at 5. So I was like, okay, well, I'll go ride the metro, and I'll be warm. So I was walking there, and there's a homeless man who lives by the bank. I don't know if that's homeless if he lives somewhere, but he resides at the bank. So, I pass him every day, and I kind of look at him, and I'm like, oh, whatever. He's homeless. It's really sad. I bet he's cold. And that night, I was so jealous. I've never been jealous of a homeless person. I don't think anybody has, but he had like 40 blankets and a dog and an umbrella. And I just wanted to have those too. I was so freezing. I hadn't been warm since 1 that morning. And so I almost, like, this isn't even a joke. I was this close to going and sitting with him because he looked so comfortable. So I was like, okay, just keep walking to the metro. So I got there, And guess what? They don't actually open until 5:30. So I didn't want to walk all the way back to my apartment and then all the way back to the metro. So I just sat and I waited for 30 minutes in the freezing cold. Now, I know right now in Georgia it's like in the 60s, I guess. It fluctuates. But here it's like 35 degrees every day, except for this past week, which has been nice. But, so it was really cold, you know, like freezing. And finally at 5:30 they opened up the metro, so I like ran down to the metro and I got a Snickers bar for breakfast because that's all they had. And I had to wait like 20 minutes for my train. You know, I looked crazy, like literally insane, because my hair was like going all these different directions. I didn't have makeup on. I was worried. So I was like, okay, you know, I'm going to take the metro down to McDonald's and I'm going to kick it at McDonald's because it's warm, you know, they're open all day long, all night. So I walked to McDonald's and they don't open until 9 o'clock. Since when did McDonald's open at 9? I thought they were always open 24/7. So after the janitor offered to walk me home, which I refused, I walked back to my apartment and I knocked on the neighbor below me. They're American. I know I've mentioned them several times in my blog. So they opened up finally, and they were like half asleep. I felt so bad about bothering them, but they were like, "Oh man, I'm sorry, I don't know what to do. You can sleep in our bed," and I was like, awkward. So I refused that. But they gave me a pillow and a blanket and a jacket. So I went back up to my little doorway and curled up again. So like an hour later, the guy who lives next to me, well, like one apartment down, you know, I've never talked to him before. He comes out to go to work and he's just like, and I'm like, hi, you know, looking insane again. And so after 30 minutes of convincing him that this was actually my apartment and I wasn't just like a homeless person crashing the building, he was like, okay, well, I have to go to work, but my girlfriend's here, so you can, you know, sleep in our apartment for a little bit on our couch. So I obviously wasn't going to refuse that. So his girlfriend comes to the door, nothing but like an underwear and a t-shirt. And I was like, oh, I've never met you before. This is so awkward. But I wasn't even thinking about that, considering the rest of my situation. So I passed out on the couch. And so 2 hours later, she wakes me up again and says, I have to go to work too now, and we can't leave you in the apartment, obviously, because I'm some thug-looking person who's going to steal everything. But, I mean, I guess I understand the whole safety aspect of it, but... So she was like, so, you know, you can either go to a friend's house, or you can come to work with me. I didn't want to go to work with her. So I was like, I think I'll just go back and sleep outside my door until my landlord calls me. So she was like, that's not an option, you know. Do you need to Skype somebody? So I was like, yes. So on Skype, thank you, my Skype saviors, Ron and Ann Doris, answered their Skype, and they were able to call my mom and tell her what was going on, you know. So they prayed for me, and the lady decided that she'd let me stay in her apartment, which was, you know, really good, like, great blessing, because I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't want to go back outside. So I was able to talk to my mom until my landlord came. And so my landlord called me, and he was like, you know, I think that I can get a key, and so I'll be there in 10 minutes. So he goes by the office where the keys are, and then, you know, so he got his stuff. So the lady says, okay, we only have one key for this apartment, so you can't leave, you know, because you won't get back in. So she walks out, but, you know, I'm caught up in my own situation. I'm half listening to what she says. So when my landlord, you know, I thought he was going to be there, I run out, close the door behind me, and then I get a text message from the guy who owns the apartment that I was, you know, staying in. And he goes, just put my key in my mailbox. And I was like, what? Am I supposed to have a key? So, for those of you that don't know, a locksmith here is like crazy expensive. It's $1,800 just to get them to open up the door. So, I started freaking out. I was like, oh my gosh, if I don't get a key for my apartment, you know, that's $1,800, and then I've ruined their lives because I've locked them out too. So, my landlord came, and luckily, he didn't have a key for my apartment. He had like a plastic slip that opened up my door. So I was like, can you open up their apartment too? Because I locked them out as well. So he opened it up for me. I was so happy. So I just grabbed their whole bowl of keys sitting by the doorway. You know, I did not want to risk grabbing the wrong key. So I take their bowl back into my room. And then I went to the store and I got them chocolate and a thank you letter, so I left it on their door. And so I told him that I had all of their keys in my apartment. So he walks, you know, I'm guessing he came home from work and he got the letter and he got the chocolate, but he never contacted me about the keys. So I'm leaving for Spain the next day, and I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to do? I've got their keys. What if they need them, you know, for something? So I didn't see him, and I ran into him on the stairs the other day, and for like the first time, this is like a week has passed, okay? And so he was like, I was confused. Why do you have my keys? And I tried to explain that I was doing something good for them, you know, that I almost locked them out of their apartment. I got their keys back. So he said he'd contact me. I still have all of their keys, waiting to give them back, as well as their blue bowl. So I'm just waiting for that, but I don't know when he's going to contact me. I don't know. So that was the homeless fiasco. The end. C'est tout.